Hello and welcome to Subjective Cinema, the podcast that doesn't care about stars or thumbs up, but a film's rating in our hearts. With me today is Cameron Mitchell, and I am Anna Dodds, your host and hapless night guard. So how are you, Cameron? How you doing? Tell us a little about yourself.
All right. I'm doing good. I'm wondering who I am if you're the hapless night guard.
Oh, that's fair.
We might
Egyptian
have to figure
prince?
that out. Possibly. He is my favorite. But how do you want me to introduce? Sorry.
However you want.
Okay.
And also, just to be really frank, I don't know what order I'll release these in, but this is the first one we're recording for some context as to why we are confused, if I cannot edit out all of our confusion.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Cameron Mitchell. I am Anna's partner. I guess that's relevant. I earned my BA in history from Agnes Scott College, and I'm earning my MA. I don't have my MA in Holocaust Studies at the University of Victoria in British Columbia, Canada.
Cool.
And my favorite film is Night at the Museum.
Yeah, and that is what we are here to talk about today.
Yeah, and that's why I'm a history folk.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Seen any good movies other than this one lately?
Old Guard swept through Netflix, I guess, a couple months ago. Yeah. That was really good. I like that. I like hot ladies with big weapons.
That's so valid. And what have you been doing to stay sane? Since even though we've kind of gotten used to the new normal, it still feels like we're all trying to make ends meet in our little quarantine pods.
Yeah. I've been making masks, non-medical grade masks for local communities. And I've also been in school through Zoom University for my MA. And yeah, generally just trying to keep my cat from eating cardboard boxes.
Night at the Museum is a 2006 fantasy comedy film directed by Sean, we're going to say Levy, might be Levy.
I think it's Levy.
Is it Levy? All right.
I think so.
All right. Directed by Sean Levy and written by Robert Ben Garant and Thomas Lennon, and is based off the 1993 children's book of, this is essentially the same name? What's the difference? Oh, it's The Night at the Museum is the children's book. All right, subtle differences. By Croatian illustrator Milan Trenk. And the film stars Ben Stiller as Larry Daly, a divorced father who applies for a job as a night watchman at New York City's American Museum of Natural History, and subsequently discovers that the exhibits, animated by a magical Egyptian artifact, come to life at night. Now we're gonna break it down into different actual film studies categories, because I am in fact a student of film studies and know these things and think they're neat. I would say we should summarize the story, but the little Wikipedia thing I read did that pretty cleanly, of the divorced dad who now works at a museum where everything comes to life at night.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
That's the story.
3 goofy ass old men try and frame him for thievery is the other thing going on.
Yeah. It's also crimes.
Yeah. Because you need stakes.
This is the kid who wants to be the new night guard.
He looks like a weirdie.
I'll give you a little tour.
I think it's a good story. I think maybe it's a simple story in a way, because it has to be. It's for children.
Yeah.
And it's like a comedy, not to I don't know, shit on comedies and be they're all simple, but they're generally pretty straightforward, I think. I wouldn't know that for certain. I don't watch comedies, just for disclaimer. Really, I don't watch them very much.
as someone who watches more comedies, I want to say, one, you're right, and two, the comedy in this holds up startlingly well.
Yes. Oh my God, I have so many notes about that.
Like the Dexter jokes are the one thing that I'm like, I am now an adult and don't care about a monkey pissing on a man. Like, this is not as funny to me anymore. But otherwise, like, the comedy is like, I don't know, I sort of thought of it as on the broad side of Universal, kind of, you know, like it's not blatantly kiddie, but it's also like not wink wink nudge nudge like raunchy or anything. It's just broad. Like,
it's just funny.
This is so not worth 11.50 an hour.
It's got like a nice 3-act structure.
Oh my God, the 3-act structure.
I've been paying attention to things you tell me. It's got a good 3-act structure, you know. We follow that through. Yeah, I think it's a good story. But then what is also interesting about the Maison Sane is the location. Is that it is at the Natural History Museum. That is not what the Natural History Museum looks like inside.
That was my question, because I have only been there once, but I was there in like 2016, so like 10 years later. So I was like, is this? Did it ever look like that? And I kind of assumed not, because I couldn't like find a space where I thought it would have fit. Though I did find like similar spaces of like, oh, this is probably at least what it was riffing off of, you know. The hallways look very similar. I saw some of those hallways and was like, that looks pretty accurate to my experience of being there.
Yeah.
But
so
that
like,
main like auditorium room with Rexy is
yeah, that's what I want to get like into, is that main auditorium room, because like the miniatures and the hallways, those like shadow boxes, that's what it looks like for the most part. It's not as bright, if I remember correctly. Like, it's pretty dim lighting, except for in the shadow boxes, because museum, we can't expose things to like really, really bright lights, and like
this is part of why the mannequins creep me out in museums, is because it's so dimly lit.
Here at night, so you might want to put a few lights on.
Costumes, I love them so much, especially Achman-Ra's costume. I mean,
I have a note here about how much you love that costume.
Yes. I don't know its historical accuracy. Like, I'm not going to speak to that, because yes, I know like things about historical costuming and like clothing, but like it doesn't extend that far back. I love his like long cape thing. I want it. I want to be Achman-Ra.
That's fair.
Yes. But in general, I think the costuming is very good. I like Larry's costumes. Actually. Like, I like his like night guard outfit. Like, I don't know. There's something about the night guard outfit that I'm like, yes, they've done that well. I like it.
He's so gray all of the time. I just noticed color a lot, because I love some color. Though mostly with costuming, because like he has the excuse of being in a uniform all the time. Like, he's maybe kind of gray outside of that, but you know, he's wearing a uniform most of the movie. So like, that's fine. Rebecca, on the other hand, is constantly in red and black and sometimes gray. Like, that's it. That is this woman's color scheme. We are seeing her on multiple days, and I think she may even be in the same damn sweater. Like, this woman wears so much red. What the hell? Like, they just decided she is love interest. We make her red.
Just so weird.
Or just like red looks nice against black and snow or something, because red is also the accents that the 3 old men get when they have all their coats and stuff on. They have like red scarves and everything too.
We wanted to be able to see them in the New York wilderness.
To go back to the museum for a minute, I had been wondering, did it ever look like that? And I'm glad to know for sure that it did not.
Not for sure. Don't quote me on these things.
I think it didn't.
I don't think it did.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it has always been a long-necked boy.
Fair. Which brings me to the very important point. They built this whole ass main room. Like, that thing just existed on a soundstage somewhere. Like, I don't, like, that shouldn't impress me. This is how movies work. But also, like, they just built that whole thing. Like, I kind of wonder what it was actually made of, because, you know, it wasn't stone, but it looks like stone. Like, it just, it's very impressive. The amount of detail work is really neat. I'm proud of whoever put that
Yeah.
set together, because
So I
you
also
can
feel the
totally just
need.
believe that it's the museum, even though it doesn't look quite right.
Yeah. And like I also need to point out like the outside. That is how it looks. Like,
Yes,
the
that is
outside
the real
correct.
outside. This cast is stellar.
This cast is amazing.
This
Oh
cast is great fun.
my god. My god. I mean, this was Rami Malek's start, basically. Like I think he had done some things before this, but like this is what brought him into like the public view, and like
It's at least the way
career
anybody
launched.
our age knows that he exists.
And I'm pretty sure that's kind of where his career launched from, was from doing Night at the Museum.
Probably.
And then
It
yeah,
was a
we've
pretty popular movie.
yeah. And we've got Ben Stiller, we've got Robin Williams, we've got Ricky Gervais. You know, we've got so many people.
I
And
forget
Owen
the
Wilson.
Octavius guy's name, but he's somebody. He's in a lot of stuff.
Is he?
Coogan? No, I'm making that up. Okay, now I have to look his name up.
I don't know. But isn't the guy driving the taxi at the very end with Rebecca in it? Isn't that like Eddie Murphy or something?
It's not Eddie Murphy, but it could very well be somebody. Okay, I'm gonna look up the cast. You got Dick Van Dyke and Mickey Rooney and Bill Cobbs. Like, they're all absolutely fabulous. And Dick Van
Yes.
Dyke especially is just wonderful. I mean, like, yeah, Steve Coogan is Octavius. Why can't I remember? Oh, there we go. Owen Wilson. Steve Coogan, Owen Wilson.
Wow.
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 Charlie Murphy is apparently the taxi driver.
Charlie
Wait,
Murphy.
like, is he related to Eddie Murphy?
Eddie Murphy. Because like I don't really know what Eddie Murphy looks like, but like every time I see him, I always go, "Is that Eddie Murphy?"
Oh, that's funny. I know what Eddie Murphy looks like, and that is not him. But also, I think he might be related to him. I'm really not sure.
That is hilarious if so.
I think he might not be, but oh no, older.
Wild coincidence.
There we go. That's why.
Oh wait, is he the older brother to Eddie Murphy, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
Come to work with me tonight. You won't be disappointed.
The kid is also solid for a child actor.
Oh yeah, he's very solid. He did
He's,
a very
he's
good
not like a
job.
strange kid. He is able to emote properly.
Yeah, no, I definitely noticed that in the beginning of the film when they're walking home from like the hockey game, and he's talking to Larry and talking about like his fallbacks and everything, and that his mom mentioned that Mary.
Absolutely introduced me to the idea of a fallback.
That's fair. But he mentions that maybe Larry needs a fallback now, and Larry's like, "Look, like I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to like get a job and be able to like still hang out and support you and everything." And I think it's kind of like emotional, the kid does, and it's kind of like, "Oh, good job, kid." Obviously, I appreciate Robin Williams. I think he's phenomenal.
Oh God, absolutely.
In times of crisis, Robin Williams as Teddy Roosevelt comes to me and tells me things that make me cry.
Oh, for sure. Oh, I have a note in here. I think it's in the story section because that's where I put most of my notes. But of just like when Larry's giving his like speech, we have shots of like Teddy looking on approvingly, and I just have a note of, God, I'd give anything to have Robin Williams look on approvingly at me. Like that would be so life affirming.
Yes, and I just love like how it ends with him. It's always such a good ending with Teddy of just like, "Good night, Teddy. No, my boy. Good day." And it's just like, there's nothing really significant, but like it's a new day, it's a chance to start over, and like I don't know. Williams is saying it's gonna be okay.
You gotta kind of go out of your way to do something notable with the cinematography, and not a whole lot of people do. But something that I did notice a lot is there are a lot of like looking down shots and a lot of looking up shots to establish sort of the majesty of everything. Like a lot of sort of semi-establishing shots, like when people are coming into somewhere or like maybe leaving, like beginnings of scenes, like entering areas and such, is regularly either from above to sort of, you know, I don't know, there's some shots that look almost like you're doing Rexy's point of view or something, that like you're sort of looking down on people in the main area, or you're looking up at, again, like Rexy or the door or the museum at large, and like really making things feel big.
At the end, when Rebecca comes in and is like, oh my god, the museum is alive, and we're introduced to Sacagawea, there's a shot of those four, and it's Teddy and Sacagawea on the left, it's Larry and Rebecca on the right. Larry and Rebecca are in gray, Sacagawea and Teddy are in beige. And it's just this interesting, like, color dynamic, framing dynamic of, like, the past and the present. And, like, isn't there something in, like, film of, like, the past is on this side? And, like...
Oh, there is. Okay, wait, hang on. I'm looking at your image flipped because we're video chatting, I think. But yes, we're talking about... Okay, hang on. Say the left and right for me again.
In the thing, they're on the left side of... Teddy and Sacagawea are on the left side of the film.
Yes. Yes, left is the past, or, you know, if you're moving towards the left of the screen, it's the past, and if you're moving towards the right of the screen, it's towards the future. So yeah, that absolutely tracks. That's an excellent point. Holy shit.
I pay attention when you're telling me things about film.
Hell yeah. I appreciate it.
I think there is only one point where I looked at the editing and went, whoa. And it's when I think one of our first encounters with Rexy and Larry gets tossed up those front steps, or at the front steps, looks like from where we're shot, and then all of a sudden we cut to a different angle and he's like sliding down the steps, and I'm like, you did not get thrown that far up the steps in the first shot. There's a green screen and everything.
Something else I have in this section is special effects.
Yeah.
Which...
Yeah, so I notice that. Sometimes it's pretty painful to notice, but...
That's fair. Yeah, kind of sometimes when they're being miniatures, like when they're in the diorama, they like filmed the diorama and then they green screened everybody in, which makes total sense. But like those do look not fabulous. But I mean, that's sort of, I think, where most of the special effects end up, because this is a fairly special effects heavy movie, is that like they're good enough that they still read very well. Like you would think 15 years later that this would be uglier than it is.
Yeah, it's, you know, it holds up really well.
I cannot tolerate this type of chaos.
There is some pretty solid editing for comedy, though nothing goes so far as Jed and Octavius puncturing the tire. Like that is...
Save yourselves!
I'm not quitting you! And then just silence.
It is my favorite thing in the world. This score is phenomenal. I think it works so well with the story and like the movie as we're watching it, and I love it. It's so strings heavy, and I was a strings player, and
lots
so
of strings.
Happy. And strings are just so dramatic and robust, but like refined and classy, and like, I don't know, it fits with history well, I think.
It does.
As opposed to drums just being like or something like that, you know, like in other like action movies I'm thinking of, like, and it's so magical sounding, like you hear it and you're like, magic.
They got those glockenspiels for whimsy.
It's so good. I love it.
It is. I was noticing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I love it with all of my soul. That's all I had to say.
Fair. I noticed that there's sort of like 3 elements to it. Like there's 3 emotions they can do, and they pretty much build the entire movie off of these three emotions. Those being, once again, like awe and just like overwhelm at the majesty of things is so key to how this movie is showing you the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then that sort of like magic and whimsy that the glockenspiels can do, and then some foreboding that's not that different from the awe, but it's still there. And those are pretty much the three music cues they've got, and they have like individual ones, and all of those features also exist within like the main theme, and they just toss those at you and just put them wherever they need to be, and it works really well.
The thesis statement of the film is that history is fun and history is important. And if you don't listen to history, things are going to go wrong. Like they do in the movie. Like we said, like Larry doesn't know his history, and then he learns history and things get better and he saves the day. And I think that is so true. Like to go on a slightly darker tangent for a moment, but like
Fair.
I'm a historian. I do genocide studies, specifically Holocaust and genocide studies.
So, you know, darker tangent.
Very, very dark stuff. And, you know, we always say those who do not learn history are fated to repeat. To repeat it. And that is so true when we look at Holocaust and genocide studies. Not a lot of people know about genocide as a whole and what it does and what it takes to commit genocide, which is not very much. And people have heard about the Holocaust, but they don't know a lot about it. They don't know how it really came to be and how easy that is to replicate. And so I think this whole thing of like, if you don't know history, you're gonna get into some trouble is like very, very important and something I believe very, very deeply. And like movies like this are so important that make history fun and look appealing. I mean, so many initiatives at other museums were started after this movie. They had many night at the museums at museums all across the country, all across the world, where children could go spend the night in a museum and learn about history. Frequently we would have interpreters, which are people who dress up in the time period or as specific people in a museum and talk about the history that way. So they, you know, had lots of interpreters at those events and everything as a way to engage children more with history. And I think also as a social and cultural historian, so someone who really looks at people and social structures and stuff like that in history, it's a very good social cultural like studies movie. It takes that more person angle as opposed to, I think a lot of the ways people learn history is through dates and like you gotta remember these dates, and it's like no, like it leans on a side of history that is way more fun and is a very valid historical discipline that I think can be way more appealing, especially to children, as opposed to someone being like, no, you need to know these dates. Like, obviously you're always going to need to know some dates, but it's going to depend on what you study. You know, like for me, I have to know Hitler came to power in 1933. You know, and specifically I have to know the dates of the Holocaust in Hungary because that's my niche. I have to know 1944 to 1945. I have to know that the invasion of Hungary by the Nazi forces was March 19th, 1944. But yeah, I think it's just, it puts forward a type of history that I don't think we introduce to children a lot, and that we frankly should introduce to children because they need to be more involved in history. Everyone needs to be more involved in history, and a lot of the times the way we teach it is very boring, and it's not engaging.
Mm-hmm.
Even I think so. Hated it. And you only get to that sort of social, cultural view of history in college.
And sort of personal too, right? Of like, sort of the narratives of individuals and life stories and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's like the basis of social and cultural history, is that
Cool.
it is.
I'm just not a historian and
Yeah,
don't know
sorry,
who
I thought I had like
hypothetically
explained
you're
that
talking
earlier. But yeah, social and cultural history is looking at people, looking at individual stories, but also looking at how societies are structured, how societies work, how they affect people. And yeah, so it gets more on the individual level of like history is a real thing that really impacts us and has impact still today. The Holocaust very much still has impacts today. Slavery in the United States has really, really big impacts still today. The treatment of Native peoples in Canada still has really, really big impacts into today. You know, so history isn't just like a bygone thing, and I think this film does a fantastic job at making history look fun and magical and exciting, because it is fun, magical, and exciting. I'm like,
I mean, this sold you, didn't it?
God, yes. I put in like every single job, like application to a museum, that like I grew up on this film. This film is a lot of the reason why I'm here and like want to do museum studies. I'm like, it's very important. I love it so much. So yeah, I think that's my little rant on why I think it's a perfect little movie.
Fair. That's a very important rant. As it would be, coming from the heart.
Learn your history, folks.
Fuck yeah.
Or else I'll throw a textbook at you.
All right. We should probably wrap it up on that note.
Probably.
So thank you very much, my dear, for being here.
And everyone go watch Night in the Museum.
And then also at the end of the movie, they're like bopping. Gotta love that bop.
Yeah. Do you remember?
21st night of September.